Here's the call of the day. Awaken fully. You can and you will. It's the third and the final message in this series, How Shall We Live? 3 useful commitments of the spiritual life. Live simply, love abundantly, and awaken fully. And it's wonderful on this day, of course, we're celebrating the Mahasamadhi, the conscious exit from the physical body of Sri Lahiri Mahashaya. September 26, 1895, he left his body, but of course his consciousness is omnipresent and with us still, blessing us. Lahiri Mahashaya was what we call the Param Guru, his Param Guru, meaning the Guru of his Guru, of Swami Sri Yukteswar. Lahiri was also the Guru of Paramahansa Yogananda's parents. I began this series with a quote from Lahiri affirming that this world that we live in is a really good place for spiritual practice, and also confirming that we can awaken fully in this lifetime while tending to our responsibilities. He knew that and could affirm it because that's what he did. He woke up fully while working 2 jobs, raising 5 children with his wife Kashimoni Devi, volunteering in the community, leading a meditation group and offering teachings and initiation into Kriya Yoga. He knew that spiritual awakening is not only possible for us, but it is inevitable. That's what our teachings tell us. It is inevitable. It's unavoidable because at some point the truth of what you are will be revealed. Waking up is recognizing that truth of our being by discerning, seeing into the nature of absolute reality, having intuitive insight into it, and importantly, experiencing it directly. So having the experience of it that's beyond words and thoughts. So spiritual awakening isn't something that we earn or we acquire or we achieve. It's the natural revelation of our deepest knowing. The soul knowing itself. The soul knowing God as its own reality. Just as the Vedic seers proclaimed that thou art. Or from the Christian scriptures, you are made in the image and likeness of God. John Philip Newell, a Celtic spirituality teacher and author, wrote, God is the flow of life deep in all things. The deeper we move in any created thing, the closer we come to the divine brilliance from which all life flows. One time, while John was speaking about this teaching, about the sacredness of life that's present everywhere and the divine nature of every human being, he was contrasting that point of view with the viewpoint of original sin, which says that what we are, what is in us that is original is opposed to God rather than of God. So when he finished his talk, a woman who had his book approached him with so much vigor that he was afraid for a moment that she was about to clomp him over the head with his book. But she was coming forward to show him what she had written inside the book as she was listening to him talk about the divinity of our being. And she had written, "I knew it, I knew it, I knew it." And that was really my experience when I heard my teacher, Roy Eugene Davis, explain about the truth of our eternal divine nature, our original divine nature. I felt that way. I felt it in my heart. I felt it in my soul. I knew it in my bones. And it was like coming home. It made sense to me. We all belong only to God. And we are restless like rivers until we find our way to the ocean of divine reality. When we're ready to hear the truth of our existence, we recognize it and wake up from the slumber of the sense of separation from the source. We're reminded of the truth. That's really what it is. We're reminded of what we already knew. But then what? Well, as the sage Rumi said, don't go back to sleep. That's the work, right? Don't go back to sleep. Thus my question, how shall we live so that doesn't happen? Well, we make a turn at that point in our lives. And most of us can identify when that happened. We turn onto the path sincerely. We begin to study, to meditate, to practice spiritual disciplines. And we live more intentionally with a soul-centered focus. And perhaps it sort of fits and starts in the beginning, but it never lets us go. And so we continue on, and through our useful efforts and the presence of divine grace that is supportive of us, our insight is stabilized and we awaken fully. It's a natural process. Until then, it's noted in the Bhagavad Gita that even a little practice of this discipline removes great fear. And that same quote says that no effort is ever lost and no obstacle can long prevail. Such a beautiful promise, one that we really should take to heart. Over time, this is what happens. Our discernment becomes clearer. Our body and our nervous system becomes more finely tuned. Our emotions are balanced. Our intuition grows stronger. Our energy grows more vigorous. Creativity is more abundant. And our insight deepens. This is a natural unfoldment that comes through our steadfast dedication to the spiritual path. So like the rising of the sun, the light of the divine self grows stronger and brighter in us. And we know it, we experience it. It's a gradual process, like the rising of the sun. But when we're steadfast, we see, if we look for it, continual progress. Continual progress. And of course, there are setbacks now and then. You may have had one yourself. But they don't last. Just as the Gita verse says, no obstacle can long prevail for one on the awakening path. So awakening is a continual process. Every day we can experience greater peace, deeper insight, and joy. I want to read to you a quote from Swami Satchidananda. said all our various spiritual practices should bring some benefit right away. All of our spiritual practices should bring some benefit right away to the body, mind, and to our society. Don't think that after 20 years, peace is finally going to come to you. Instead, feel the presence, the beauty, and the benefit of your practices little by little in your everyday life. Each day, you should feel a little healthier physically, more peaceful, and living a more useful life. The essence of all the spiritual practices is to make you more physically easeful, mentally peaceful, and socially useful. I really like that. That the essence of all the spiritual practices is to make you more physically easeful, mentally peaceful, and socially useful. And you can only be useful to people when you are also easeful and peaceful. The awakened life is cultivating that peace of the soul every day, living simply, loving abundantly, awakening fully. Before I conclude, I want to just touch on what I would say is one of the greatest barriers we erect against awakening fully. And that is our mistaken ideas about what awakening is and what it looks like. Thinking that it's not for us. That's a big one, right? Thinking it's just for, I don't know, somebody more spiritual than us. But I always like to say, you cannot get any more spiritual than you already are. You already are the fullness of the divine self. You already are that. So you have to get rid of that idea that awakening fully is not for us. The corollary that comes with that mistaken belief is thinking that somehow awakening fully is incompatible with functioning fully in this realm. People want to put off enlightenment because they have things to do. Well, don't put off enlightenment because whatever you have to do that is useful and is right for you to do, you will do more skillfully. That's the promise of awakened living. Being awake is being able to live by the wisdom, the guidance of the soul. Being able to live with insight. Being able to live skillfully. And having freedom from sorrow. Sri Yukteswar told Paramahansa Yogananda that divine perceptions are not incapacitating. So I want to conclude with a little story about this from the Tripura Rahasya. This is about Himaleka and her husband. So Himaleka's husband is sitting in deep meditation with his eyes closed, engrossed in a deep, profound samadhi and ecstasy. After a while, she's watching him. After a while, he opens his eyes and he sees her. And then right away, he attempts to close his eyes again to return to that joyous state he was experiencing. She's his wife, so she grasps his hands and says, oh, my beloved, won't you please tell me about your experience? What do you see with eyes closed? And what is lost when your eyes are open? Please tell me. He says, my wife, I have found the highest peace, free from the world of sorrow. He explains to her, once I was ignorant of the vast joy that is within, and I only looked for happiness in the world. But now I know, he tells her. And then he adds, and even you, Himaleka, even you who know about this joy, abandon it as you engage in your useless activities. You can tell they're married, right? She smiles at him, and then she says to him, my dear, you are the one who does not know the supremely holy state. Once that is known, all confusion is gone. That state is as far removed from you as the moon from the earth. What you know is next to nothing. That joy, she tells him, doesn't depend on the closing or opening of one's eyes. It's not attained by doing or not doing anything. It's not realized by coming or by going. How can that which is whole and that which is inherently full and complete possibly be attained by doing anything, by going anywhere, or by closing our eyes? She says, what can I say about the magnitude of your delusion? Listen, she says, I will tell you the truth. As long as the knots of ignorance are not cut, true joy will always escape you. Uproot the very tightest knot that says, I am not this. Uproot that belief, I am not this, and everywhere recognize the whole world in the self. Everywhere recognize the whole world in the self. Listening to his beloved wife, he realized the self is the whole, the fullness, the allness, which is everywhere. And eyes open, he awakened fully. Live simply, love abundantly, awaken fully. Om.